what are you actually doing with the process? Most of that depends on how deeply you participate in it. If all you do is daydream in a general sense, and then forget it, you won't see much result. The key to the entire process is to live the experience. Don't summarize. Live out the progression of dialogue and events exactly as you would in real life. One person talks, then the other. Every action is played out, one at a time, every word of dialogue is spoken. This is the key to bringing your world to the tipping point where it begins to function with its own independent volition. If you've ever left an old neighborhood or other place where you used to hang out, and were gone for any length of time, then you returned much later, you know how your entire perspective on the place was shot to hell. It can never again be what it once was. Half the businesses you knew are gone, most of the people you knew are gone, and the place is an empty shell of what it used to be for you. Writers are routinely advised to leave their work for a time, then come back later to read it. It's been proven that musicians learn much faster when they practice for a time, stop to do something else, then return to their instrument. With the process, you are utilizing this practice whether you intend to or not. You enter your world for a time, interact, pop out of it, then return later. In so doing, many of your distortions are gone and you have a much more objective interpretation of what's going on there. It's the contrast between our world and yours that provides you with objectivity. Humans cannot sit still. There is no situation that any human could be happy inside forever. Change must occur. In your world, you will most likely start out by using basic domination to resolve everything. Force your will on others at every turn. It won't take long before this becomes painfully boring for you. There is no sense of achievement when everything comes too easily. So you'll begin creating challenges, effectively, resistance in some form, for yourself to overcome. In effect, the process is accelerating your development because you're experiencing things that you would most likely never experience in physical reality. Experience has the effect of changing core values where nothing else will. You cannot normally move beyond wanting something without actually having the experience of having it. If it's sufficiently developed, your interaction with your imaginary world can and will provide a wealth of experience that will move the evolution of your core values right on down the track. Imagine your dream is to run a company. So that's what you do in your imaginary world. In the process, you will invariably encounter employees with the full spectrum of negative traits from stealing time to plain old bad attitudes. At first, they are dealt with swiftly and severely. And initially, there is tremendous satisfaction in that. But as employee after employee is mercilessly inserted into the unemployment line, it becomes less and less satisfying to handle things with brute force because it's always the same experience for you. You buried somebody who could not defend himself. Big deal. So you begin looking for alternatives or for some kind of expansion to your situation. That one shift, by itself, has altered your core values. Your initial core value was to skip the song and dance, grab the bull by the horns, and destroy the problem. Right is right, the employee was a bad apple, so their history. But living by that core value has left you feeling empty and unsatisfied beyond the first few cases of fulfillment. So you naturally begin questioning that core value and looking to expand it. You need more than it can bring you in its current form. You have shifted your core values, slightly or tremendously, and physical reality must reflect that change. This is what will occur again and again by using the process. Next, you will reach the point where entering your world is a treat instead of a chore. There will be so much going on there that it will be like anticipating seeing a good movie after work. The entire day goes better when you have something definitive to look forward to. The next benefit to using the process is the contrast it will provide. Most of who you think you are was programmed by the culture you live in. The vast majority of your identity comes from assessing how well you conform to what society labels as a success, as powerful, as a good person, etc. You would not have developed most of these values if you had not been taught them by society. Most or all of this falls by the wayside inside your world as taboos no longer exist, and there is no real consequence for letting your true colors show. As you bring your natural traits into play in your world, you will have no choice but to begin identifying what they really are. The impact of this is enormous because your entire identity will begin to shift. You will no longer think of yourself as good or bad, successful or a failure, valuable or worthless, based on how you are viewed and judged by the people in society. You will step outside those definitions more and more as the real you unveils itself in your world. As this occurs, your core values must shift equally dramatically because your entire sense of who and what you are will change so much. In the same vein, your handling of problems and conflicts will shift as well, which, yet again, is a shift in your core values. You will begin training yourself to think outside the box, embrace all possibilities, and think in terms of creating solutions instead of fighting problems. Finally, you are building up inertial living as a successful, happy human being who is in charge of his or her life. You will take risks in your world that you would not take in daily life. Failure becomes less and less acceptable and less necessary as your entire being becomes more and more accustomed to succeeding at everything. Obstacles that once seemed insurmountable become minor irritations. Once again, this will affect your core values dramatically because your entire outlook on life and what is possible will eventually change with equal intensity. Everything discussed here may well seem secondary and minor. This could not be farther from the truth. Through the process, you are directly impacting the precise mechanism that controls your fortunes in daily life. What follows is an imaginary case of the changes unfolding in the life of a person who used the process long-term and with full commitment. It will become apparent in this imaginary account how powerful the process really is in achieving any goal. Meet Sam. He's a 32-year-old software developer who has come to hate his job because he cannot work at his potential. Every time he tries to improve something, others are threatened and they either get him fired or squash him and his ambitions very quickly. Sam has a cheating wife, and 2 kids who are spoiled rotten. Sam is miserable, always in emotional pain, and quite desperate. He has effectively given up on his life ever appreciably improving, until he discovers the process. Sam undertakes the process with full commitment, with the starting goal of creating the ultimate job situation. Sam's favorite television show is one specific episode of the old Twilight Zone series. The episode is titled A Stop at Willoughby. An overly stressed office worker falls asleep on the train, only to wake up at a stop that didn't exist, Willoughby. Willoughby is, essentially, a utopian town of serenity, slow-paced and arguably the ultimate in community living. Sam ends up creating his imaginary world within the town of Willoughby. However, he has to make changes from the television episode, to allow for computers to exist in Willoughby. So he throws a worst-buy store into the town's commerce base, and creates a local company engaging in software development. Sam's first decree is to make the software company his own. Over time, he encounters every unfair practice one could imagine at work, always eliminating the problem employee in response. Hostile co-workers in real life become casualties of justice in Sam's Willoughby. This gives rise to a problem. In the course of his company house cleaning, Sam realizes that he has cast so many Willoughby residents into the unemployment line that the town has now been handed a minor social and economic crisis. City Park even has his former enemies sleeping on park benches, destroying the town's allure as the last stop on the road to heaven. Finding the entire problem to be a minor irritation, Sam doesn't want to spend too much time dealing with it. So he simply ships out the fired personnel to the nearby town of Skankton in a sweeping move that exports all the nasty workers out of Willoughby and creates a minor influx of skilled, quality citizens from other towns to replace them. All is well. Sam creates a wife for himself, a frighteningly stunning blonde who is fiercely loyal to him and carries massive respect and appreciation for all his qualities. In Willoughby, Sam has arrived. He has the perfect income, the perfect wife, and the perfect family. At this point a new problem arises. Sam is bored to tears. Every day is perfection. There are no more achievements to be achieved. Sam is now the mayor of Willoughby, loved by all its citizens. Life is as good as it's ever going to get, there are no real problems, and he is bored to the brink of madness. Sam needs adventure, accomplishment, and a real reason to get up in the morning. He plays out an episode where his wife is massively attracted to another guy in town. This has its merits for a time, but his wife rapidly sees the error of her ways, realizes Sam's obvious superiority, and abandons her affections for the other guy, immersed in her newfound, even stronger sense of reverence for Sam. Realizing things could never end up differently than his coming out on top, Sam is now really bored. He realizes that for as long as he is living in Willoughby, he will never again have any real sense of achievement because every outcome will always go his way. In a moment of epiphany, Sam realizes that he faces the same problem in utopian Willoughby that he faces in real life. While the surrounding details might be dramatically different, the outcome is still identical. He can't feel like he's achieved anything. This sends Sam into a protracted period of introspection. In real life, he always had the comfort of being able to blame fellow employees for his plight. But through his use of the process, he realizes that the same problem comes up to embrace him even when every person and situation he could possibly blame for having that problem has been eliminated. It's quite difficult, but Sam is cornered into admitting that the problem cannot have its roots anywhere else but within him, since he is the only common element between his real-life job and his functioning in Willoughby. The first thing that hits Sam between the eyes is the amount of realism that could be injected into his blaming other employees for the problems he faced. Where else might this be happening? Without realizing it, Sam has just undergone a massive shift in his core value system, one that the process greatly accelerated. Suddenly, the way he perceives others, and consequently, the power they hold over his life, has undergone massive reconstruction. Within his core values, Sam is now far more powerful and capable than he ever imagined, and the power others hold over him is a fraction of what it used to be. For Sam, this shift is not the result of any training, conditioning, or teaching. It is simply reality. Within a few days, Sam receives a surprise, major promotion at work. His salary effectively doubles. He notices that for no discernible reason, the same co-workers who were such a problem earlier are now treating him very differently. He's receiving levels of respect he never received before. People are coming to him for resolution, pulling the same innovations out of him that they were squashing a week earlier. Sam's core perception of himself and others underwent a dramatic shift. His physical reality had no choice but to follow suit. His real life went from that of a miserable, downtrodden drone to an energetic, appreciated and capable manager. Why? Because Sam changed his perception of himself. The law of attraction kicked in and rebuilt Sam's reality to exactly mirror his perception of Sam. This is just one example of what the process can deliver. It is hardly representative of all that is possible. Video 5 of this series covers some of the pitfalls that should be avoided both in daily life and in one's imaginary world.